Hello. Well, welcome to Finder's Library. Doing something a bit different today. I'm gonna be doing a... Oh, wait a second. Just need to make this a little bit. I'm doing this like mega rough, right? It's gonna be super chill. It's gonna be me just chatting about the lore of Flesh and Bloods. I'm gonna make my face a little bit smaller as well, so you can see more of. I'm sure people would rather see Dromai than my face. Yeah, I wanted to do some more lore videos, but as some of you may know, I got a new job a few months ago now, about 5 months, which is taking up a bit more of my time, and we're sort of push the point. push the point. A lot at the moment. Hamish is doing a lot of that work, but I'm sort of doing some behind the scenes stuff and doing the podcast as well. Did an interview for the first time in a while. So, sort of put Findales on a bit of a back burner. I'm just trying to work out the way I want to approach the channel and how I want to make content. I thought this would be a pretty interesting idea, is to just essentially talk at the screen, because I've got so many thoughts and ideas about Flesh and Blood lore and the new stuff that's come out, and I really want to get stuck in, and I thought this would just be the easiest way to do it, right? It's just to go through some of the stories that they've released recently and just chat about them. Like, just chat about them with you guys. And I thought this might be something that I could potentially do as a live stream in the future, so you guys would be able to join in and we could have a bit of back and forth. We'll see where that goes. I thought for this first one I'm just going to chat. It's just going to be super chill. It's this kind of video I really like watching. I just sort of put it on right before I go to bed, or when I'm just chilling on the sofa. It's almost like a podcast that you can also watch to see, but you can just listen along at home if you're interested. And we're just going to go through a few bits and pieces. So that's kind of the background to this video. I'd really appreciate any feedback you got on it. But I'm probably just going to do these anyway because they're more just for me. Like, if you enjoy listening along, that's great too. But it's an opportunity for me to get some of this stuff down, right? You know, like, get it on the channel, get it recorded, get some content going out there, but also just to get my thoughts out there, to talk it through with myself, because there's a few things coming up with the lore at the moment I think would be really interesting to discuss. And the first thing, of course, is Dromai. So we're going to be talking about Dromai. We're going to be covering Dromai's about and story page and the first short story. So if you don't know what I mean by that, pretty much every hero, when they release it, you get this initial snippet of pretty basic lore, though actually I think Dromai's is pretty interesting. And then you get some stuff about the hero. This is more game-related information. But you also get these little the cards at the bottom that sometimes have useful info. So, for example, we knew that Dromai and Fi were sort of siblings. They're not blood related, I believe. I don't think they actually share a parent, but we can cover that in the story when we go through it. But we found this out before the story's released, because it was on an entry on one of these cards at the bottom. So these are sometimes worth looking at to try and get a bit of an understanding. Like, for example, it would have been really cool for Storm of Sandakai to have a bit more, but we don't really have anything there. But we might find some stuff out as we go through the story. So we're just gonna get stuck in. As I said, this is gonna be super casual. I'm just gonna chat. It's almost like I'm talking to myself. But if you like this, let me know and I'll do some more. I'm probably gonna work my way through some of the stories. The reason I'm not just blasting through all of Dromai's story is because Dromai's and Fi's let's open this up. These stories, so it goes Dragons of Empire, I believe, is the first one, and then Fi's first story sort of slots between these two, or maybe it's the other way around. We'll work it out. And then Betrayal happens at a certain point in the timeline. We'll work that all out and talk to each other about it. But right, let's start with the about page on Dromai. So Dromai, I've seen a few people say that they prefer Dromai's young art to her old art. I think what we're seeing here with old Dromai is her embracing her role now as part of the I guess it's the Imperials now. She's on the side of the Emperor at this point. She's quite regal. If we scroll down, we can see her playing Go with someone that looks suspiciously like Fi, or could be Fi. And yeah, it mentions that they had a sibling rivalry fought over games of Go, so it suggests that maybe this little boy on the left here is Fi. But Dromai is described as having the blood of the dragon boiling in her veins, and we actually this isn't just a metaphor. So in one of the stories, I think it's Fi's story actually. The blood of the dragon, actually, let me see if I can quickly find it. I think it's this one. If we search dragon, it's probably going to get a few dragons. Might not be this one. Maybe it was the Fires of Rebellion. Dargon. You're getting an insight into how I want these. Here we go. Yeah. So in Fi's first backstory, Fi's Rebellion, says, "Did you know that dragon blood steams as it spills?" Yeah. She shrugs. Hope he's bringing some Dracai with him. So, the dragon blood is not just a metaphor. It's actually a thing that is within certain people. And if we go over to Kano's hero page, so now in alphabetical order, so Kano will be here. It says, descended from nobility, Kano was born with the power of the dragon's fire within his veins. So there's a very distinct relation between having dragon blood and having it be part of you and in your brains, in your blood. Which I think is really cool. It kind of almost suggests that this nobility, this timeline. You might be able to hear an ambulance outside, but lots of birds as well. This nobility, this timeline, these individuals, this dynasty, as it were, maybe came from one of the dragons. There's a big dragon that we're gonna touch upon in a second. Maybe they were born of this dragon. Maybe they were, having sex with a big old dragon. I mean, if anyone's been watching House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, it's got some similarities, right? In that series, certain individuals are resistant to flame or various bits and pieces, and maybe there's something similar. And we learn about some other people part of the I'm going to call them the Dracai. I think it's explained earlier about the distinction between, when we looked at the Fires of Rebellion, it says, where does it say this about the, if they're a Dracai, we take them alive. They must see how we live, how we suffer. I hope he's bringing some Dracai with them. So I believe they explained exactly what this was. So maybe we can have a quick look. When they did the naming convention for this set, I think it's Welcome to Volcai. So, yeah, it says a lot about. I can just find this stuff because I've been reading it way too much. Here we go. Let's give some backstory before we get stuck straight into Dromai. So the people of Volcai, pronounced Volcai, like the sound a raven makes, Kakor, are divided between the Dracai and the Volcai. So the Dracai are bestowed names that are free of any restrictions, conventions, or stigma, and granted positions in the royal court of Volcai by the emperor. The Volcai, however, are more limited. Their names are homogeneous, ending in I, as a mark of their Volcai origin status. Names ending in I may rhyme with lie, my, or by. So in the past, we've had already some Volcai, Kasai and Viserai, and then we learned about Fi and Dromai. But Dromai has a father, I believe it's her father, who was part of the Dracai. And presumably he married outside of the Dracai, but we're gonna that gets covered in the story, so we'll talk about that in a bit. And then there's some stuff on the naming conventions of dragons. So the dragons are a little bit different. The dragons also have the AI suffix. Incidentally, very interesting that they have the same. So, well, the male ones have the same suffix as the Volcai, but the female dragons have IA. So Dominia, Caloria, Necria, and Uvia are the 4 female dragons that Dromai summons, and the rest are all male. So that's just something there. Lots of IAs. They draw attention to Ophidia, Aria, and Mysteria. Interesting. I don't know if there's any relevance to that. Probably not. It's just a nice way to end a made-up word. But then there may be some future stuff there. So yeah, just quickly covering the distinction between the Volcai and the Dracai. So just to bear that in mind when we're talking through this story, because it can get a little bit confusing. It gets confusing to me. Maybe it's not confusing to anybody else. But so back to Dromai and the fact that she actually has this blood in her veins, which, as we learn from Fi's backstory, has actual significance. Like the blood steams when it hits the ground. It's a material, like a physical thing. Like it's not just a metaphor. Anyway, spent ages talking about the first sentence. This is going to be a really long video, so just strap in. Okay, so the ancient dragons have awoken. Now, the ancient dragons have awoken. This is an interesting one because it's kind of, is this true, right? Like, is this the case? The nature of illusions in Flesh and Blood is really interesting. They are illusions, but they are made out of a material. So for Prism, her illusions are sculpted from arc light. So Prism is the other illusionist in Flesh and Blood. We'll just load her page up to because there's a really good line that explains that talks about how it's her name, right? Like the sculptor of arc light. She uses arc light to create her essentially the heralds and the illusions that she makes. And they have this interesting line here. What is real? If you can see it, is it real? What about if it whacks you in the face? When I tried to touch it, it disappeared. So sculpt fantastical arc-light spectres that confuse, confound, and combat bewilders opponents. Now, if anyone's playing against Prism, confuse, confound, very, very apt words. Though I think with Dromai, it's a lot simpler. So she uses ash as a material to create dragons. Now it says that the ancient dragons have awoken. Like, have the ancient dragons awoken, or is this the metaphor? Is this the first metaphor that we're talking about? Because actually, it says that these dragons have come from the past. They were once mere memories, forgotten notes stretched in dusty tomes. They now soar across Volcai's smoking skies. These sear a path through Dromai's enemies. So Dromai is summoning. She's not summoning though, is she? She's creating an illusion of a historical dragon that used to exist, and maybe doesn't exist anymore, but maybe does. I think this is more just saying that she is essentially reminded people that these dragons exist. She can summon them from ash, and she's found them in books. Another really interesting thing, forgotten notes scratched in dusty tomes. That's very similar to how Prism discovered the heralds. So in Prism's story, she read about the heralds in a book in the Great Library of Solana, and it's just around. Yes, this is the art. Prism pored over ancient tomes for hours. Blah 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 blah. Depicting the heralds who so nobly cared for the city of Solana. And with Dromai, it also says that these dragons are forgotten notes scratched in dusty tomes. So it's a similar thing with forgotten legends, though I imagine the legends of these dragons existed in sort of folk stories of the Volcai. That's just speculation. It might be written somewhere, but I imagine that people remember that these dragons existed. Yeah. So moving on. Moving on. We're already been going for like 15 minutes. I've barely said anything. Once manipulated from the shadows, the puppet has severed her strings. Now, this is sort of part of the story. So, Dromai, as we will learn when we go through the story, Dromai was sort of influenced by a lie. She was told something about her adopted mother that was not true. So that kind of manipulated her into doing the bidding of the Imperials, the Dracai. But she doesn't. She's not. She still wants to be part of that world. What she seems like she does. She wants power. She wants to be in control. So she was once manipulated from the shadow, and it says the puppet has severed her strings. She will not bow to the lies of her past, neither will she bow to the false promises of others' grand futures. I think that's possibly a suggestion that she's going to have this very strange relationship with the Emperor of Volcai, that she won't bow to the false promises of his grand future. When you read the Emperor's story page, which just got released recently, it's very much, I'm the savior, you need me, oh, the world, the Volcai will be ruined without me. He's got this very grand, self-indulgent, self-confident view of his self-importance. And I think this here is a reference to this with Dromai, suggesting that these are false promises of this grand future that the Emperor feels that he has for Volcai. So it says Dromai has her dragons, and that's all she needs. And so it's not all she needs, and the singular will to use them to fulfill her own burning desires. So yeah, she's got these dragons, she's got these illusions, and she's going to use them to achieve her own personal aims. But she's going to do that as part of the established hierarchy. And that's really interesting, right? So she's like pursuing her own goals and pursuing what she thinks is right for Volcai, well, for herself. We should say for she's doing it for herself. But she's doing it as part of the established system, right? So she's trying to work from inside the system. While on the other hand, we have Phi, who represents the opposite way of being apart from the system and trying to bring the system down. Okay, so it's a very classic, conflict where both Phi and Dromai are sort of seeking similar kind of aims in terms of Phi is trying to fight for the people and trying to bring about change, but Dromai is sort of fighting for herself and trying to bring about change. But Dromai is doing it as part of the established system, and Phi is trying to bring that system down. So I think that's a really interesting distinction. The artist's destiny is painted in ash and blood. Dromai will create her masterpiece for all to behold, and this time no one will stand in her way. I'm pretty sure some people are going to stand in her way, but we will cover that later. But yeah, this suggestion that Dromai is an artist, and she is essentially almost like painting dragons in ash, which I think is a really nice imagery. To be fair, I like that image. We'll scroll down. There's not a huge amount here. I just wanted to cover this particular sentence. Let me actually copy that. Right. All illusionists use a base material mixed with ether. Interesting. To craft their fantastical creations. So Dromai has mastered the talent of ash artistry, able to animate ash from her surrounding environment into fragile yet fearsome forms, none more so than the legendary dragons of Volcai. So I think that's really interesting. So that the ether is fundamentally involved in illusions, right? So you have to use ether and a base material. So for Prism, that is Arclight, but presumably also ether. So she's still using magic, the magic of this world, alongside Arclight to create her phantasms and her spectra. while Dromai is using ash and ether as well. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the illusionists from Aria. So there's illusionists that take part in the Everfest Carnival and just generally sort of traveling circuses and things like that. And I was wondering if they used the flow. Like, I wondered if the base material that the illusionists from Aria use is flow, is the stuff that we hear about in Bravo's backstory that he kind of summons from the earth and uses to make himself stronger. So I wondered if that's what they use, and I'd be really interested to get an illusionist from Aria that maybe uses the flow as. Can you imagine like like seismic surges being a material for illusions, and having a guardian illusionist? Like, I know that's pretty crazy, but I just thought that was kind of like, that could be kind of cool, right? Convert a seismic surge token into an illusion. I don't know, that's not going to happen, but I just thought that was an interesting thing, that in the future when they release illusionists, we need to keep an eye out for what their base material is. And then we have this Dragons of Volcai section. So this is what I was referring to earlier with the whole, like, did the Dracai fuck a dragon? Basically, yeah. Not an NSFW video, by the way, in case you were wondering. Like, yeah, like they have the dragon blood in their veins, right? And there's this draconic Aesir from the past. I'm just saying, put 2 and 2 together. What do you get? But yeah, essentially, there's this Aesir. Now, Aesirs were talked about. So James White, I believe, at the last Pro Tour, someone asked him about Aesirs, and they're kind of like gods. Like, he made a distinction between like major gods like Findel and Ophidia, and the Aesir. So there's the way I understand it is I kind of think of Findel and Ophidia as being like forces, like unknowable forces like nature, and they're like major gods that it's harder to connect with. While the Aesir, we can. Now, the Aesir are almost like the like greater demons, or like still deities, but that people can contact and communicate with. Kind of like in D&D's, like Dungeons and Dragons, where like you can have a connection with your deity, and you can speak to them. Like, if you're a high enough level cleric, or you're a warlock, you can communicate with your deity or with the demon that you're associated with. And I kind of see the Aesir as being similar to that. And then there's this draconic Aesir that apparently slumbers within the cradle of Mount Volcai, and maybe that's where the dragon blood came from, right? Maybe they didn't have to. I don't know. Maybe it was a purely platonic relationship with the draconic Aesir, and everyone was friends. But one day he was like, "Hey, do you want this dragon blood?" And the emperor was like, "Yeah, sure. Give me that great dragon blood." And then that's been passed down through the generations to the Dracai. Okay, right. Back on track. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about with the dragons being servants of the draconic Aesir. So that's interesting. Dracona, Optimi, Tumulti, and Dominia are servants of the draconic Aesir. So I can't remember, like, this is going back now, like whether the distinction between the Aesir and the Embra, whether the Embra are like officers of an Aesir. So maybe these higher dragons are like Embra and they serve the single Aesir, or I can't remember the Embra was like the main one. I'm not going to go back and find out, it's taken me ages, so maybe in the comments below we can have a chat about the distinction between the Aesir and the Embra, which I believe Dead Summer Art's done some videos on in the past, so maybe I should just go watch that. And then we have the servants of these higher dragons, which are the kind of like rare dragons. If you play the game, you know that we have the majestic dragons, and then we have the rare dragons. So it's kind of a similar situation, right? With in the lore. But it says that they may be lost to time in the flesh and blood, but Dromai is able to wield their essence as powerful weapons of destruction using the arcana of Ash artistry. So, scrolling back up, says the ancient dragons have awoken, right? So they're not really, have they awoken? It depends on your point of view, right? Like, the dragons aren't back. The dragons have been lost in time in the flesh and blood, but Dromai has brought them back as illusions. It's like saying that the herald, like, did it ever say in like Prism's story that sorry if that, by the way, going from the dark to the, I'm doing it again, which is probably even worse, but like going from the dark to light, apologies if that's a bit of a harsh change. But do we ever talk about the heralds being back? I guess we kind of do, because like Bolton has this connection with the big sword lady one. Let's remind Bologna. Let's find out. Belladonna. Okay, don't just make that up. This one, big sword lady. I assume she's a lady. Shouldn't assume. Bologna. Oh my gosh, I was Bologna. I was close. I think I said that, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, I still got it, guys. I still got it. I've not lost it after all this time. Where were we? Yeah, are we saying that they're back as well? Like, we're saying here that the ancient dragons have awoken. Are we saying that the ancient heralds have returned? Because they kind of have, in the same kind of way. Like, Prism is summoning them as illusions, and one of them was speaking to Subaltern. Like, what was the exact context of this? He found himself in the grasp of a powerful vision. The War-Tune Herald appeared before him, wings of flame. Yeah, I remember, read out loud, Daniel. Don't just... did you see that? I just drifted off into like just reading in my head. The herald then turned her gaze to the land stretching beneath her and watched as it turned to ash. It's a vision. It's a vision, right? So, but Prism can summon these heralds, right? So, yeah, gotta think about that. Just gotta think about it, guys. You gotta think about it. But yeah, Red Hot just talks about burning people with dragons, which is great. All the dragons are down here. So I do think this is interesting. So, oh gosh, are we gonna go through the dragons? I'm gonna go. Why not, guys? We're just having fun. We're just chilling, you know. This is okay. There is actually some interesting stuff under these dragons, right? So Dracona Optimi. Firstly, male, AI. We're not gonna do that every time. The Dragon of Devastation said to only serve the Asura Flames. But I thought it was the Draconic Asura. So the Draconic Asura and the Asura Flames are the same thing, because it says servants of the Draconic Asura, Dracona Optimi. It says here, said to serve only the Asura Flames, Dracona Optimi. So the Asura Flames and the Draconic Asura are the same. So that's interesting. In my opinion, that is very interesting. Also, just looks absolutely badass. I don't know if you got the full art here. Might be able to like zoom in a little bit on this. You can see he's actually like crushing a rival dragon, which I think is really cool. Then we got Tumulti, the dragon of metallurgy, said to power the imperial furnace. Which is mad, right? Like, there's just a dragon in is the dragon in the furnace? Like, what does this mean? Like apparently there's imperial furnace and it's powered by this dragon who's just sitting underground or something. I don't know. I think that's crazy. Like, that this dragon's just powering the imperial furnace. Like, seems kind of odd to me. Then we got Dominia, said to oppress the Volcai. Like, what an existence, right? I know I'm not taking these 100% seriously, but what an existence, right? Like, so you've got like, yeah, I serve the Asura Flames. Like, yeah, I power the Imperial Furnace. And then this one is like, yeah, I just mess with the Volcai. just oppress them. I just go around oppressing them. Yeah. So I guess this represents the Dracai's dominion over the Volcai. Which, when you put it that way, it's a lot more serious. But I just think it's just like a troll dragon. It's just there to oppress. Awful. Um, Here's a cool one. As Volai, the dragon of choice, said to guard the crossroads of the Sandakai. Yeah, so the Sandakai, we know we mentioned a bit. We'll cover it in the story if we ever reach the story, guys. 30 minutes in, we still know the story. I'm having fun, so you can probably tell. Then we got we'll get through these a bit faster. So we got Caloria, who's in the pits, which is cool, right? There's a dragon in the pits in under metrics. That's amazing. That's so cool. Like, it says that these dragons are. Remember, it said that the dragons were lost in time in the flesh and blood. But it says that these dragons are in places. Like, I'm skeptical about that line. I guess they're lost, but they're still around. Like, it'd be so cool. There's got to be a dragon in the pits, right? Like, that's just too good a story to ignore. And then we have Uvia, the dragon of fertility, said to roost within the lush caverns of Aria. That's pretty cool. We have Necria, who's in the monastery, which is awesome. Like, there's a dragon in the monastery, which is so cool. And then we got Themai, dragon of law, watch over the golden plains of Solana. I'm surprised we haven't seen Themai. Maybe Themai's gone. But again, that's very cool. They're kind of connected to different places. We got Vin Sarakai, dragon of aggression, said to prowl the red desert. This makes me think that maybe Viserai came from the red desert, because there's clearly a connection, right, between Vin Sarakai and Viserai, like, and the arcane damage bit. So maybe. Dromai, dragon of engineering, said to soar over the metrics rust belt. I wonder if Dromai and Tumulti like get together and like sort of like make cool things in their downtime. Just like, I'll melt the metal and you engineer the metal. So this is really choppy. So metrics for Dromai, and obviously near to where the pits is. And then we got Maragi in Mysteria. Yeah, classic. Dragon of tactics. Sure. And then Come on. Yandurai, dragon of endurance, said to be rooted within the Savage Lands. So, we got dragons for all the major places. We've got Savage Lands, Mysteria, Metrics, Red Desert, Solana, the Monastery, Aria, Pits, Sandakai, and these ones. So, interesting point. No dragon for the Dracai. No, the Volcai. Volcai, very important. No, I'm getting it right now. No dragon for the Volcai. It seems like the dragons are connected to the Dracai and to places throughout Aria. So it's kind of like, because this is the Volcai are connected with the Phoenix, and the Dracai are connected with the dragons. So it's something to bear in mind. Whoa. Okay, so that was we managed to cover like a paragraph and some of that in like 35 minutes. Shall I keep going? Shall I split the story out into its own? Let's get stuck into the first story, right? So, story time. Oh gosh, there's more here. So Dromai barely remembers her parents, Torvai the Dracai. Interesting again that Torvai has the Volcai naming convention, but is a Dracai, and Sani of the Sandfolk. So murdered before she had even learned to walk. So her parents were murdered before she was walking. So she was very, very, very young. She didn't really know her parents at all. And then Min of the Forest of Flames found her, raised her in a humble village. Min is Phi's mother. So that's where the sibling connection comes to. They're not actually blood related. It seems like they're not blood related. You never know. But they were raised together as children, Phi and Dracai, as part of the Volcai. A hatchling dragon in the nest of the Phoenix. So she and Min's son became thick as thieves. Dromai was the mastermind. Essentially, they had a normal sibling relationship. She was the older sister, and she tormented the shit out of her younger brother. in a nice, loving way, I'm sure. And yeah, but she's sort of planned. She says she's planning for practice. She's preparing. Yeah. So even as a child, she was sort of thinking about how to seize power, how to plan, how to scheme. And she knew she was destined for greater things. So when she didn't leap. So there's a jump in time here between these two paragraphs. So the village was attacked by the Dracai, presumably, and the Dracai led her away. She wasn't sad, she didn't look back. She had never belonged there. She wanted to be part of the Dracai. So when the Dracai came and seized her, she doesn't necessarily she's happy, but she believed that this was what was meant to happen. Where power awaited beyond her imagining. No. Dromai's imagination is as boundless as her ambition. Sorry. She's an ash artist, and her visions will strike terror into the hearts of all who behold them. So yeah, Dracai. She's now part of the Dracai. She was the daughter of a Dracai and Sani of the Sandfolk. Then she was raised by the Volcai, and then she was taken back by the Dracai, and that's where we start with Dragons of Empire. So this is a pretty interesting little story, and it gives us a little bit of, gives us some action, gives us some story, and we'll just run through it and just talk about it. So at the start of the story, Dromai is summoning 3 dragons, Vincerakai, Asvalai, and Necria. And you can see the dragons here, though. Where is Asvalai? In this. Is Asvalai over here? I'm being mad. I can't really see him. But here's Vincerakai, and this is definitely Necria. And here's Dromai at the bottom. So Vincerakai comes out of a house, Asvalai comes from the ashes of a temple, and Necria comes from a charred corpse pile. Notice all 3 of these places would have ash in them. Fire-gutted house, ashes of a temple, and charred corpse pile. You know, there's going to be some ash knocking around, I'm sure. And they kind of relate to each of their ones. So Asvalai comes from I'm not sure why Asvalai is coming from a temple, but Vincerakai is linked to a fire-gutted house, like the flaming red, and Necria comes from the corpses because it's a big corpsey zombie monster. The Imperial soldiers looked up in awe, so the Imperials are on Dromai's side, so they're sort of standing, I guess, behind Dromai. She's doing this and watching the dragons come up and attack this big wall. There's a big sandstone wall. They're attacking, they're sieging. They are sieging a wall of sandstone. And the Imperials have seen their comrades die sieging this wall, and they have suffered from the sun and water, the lack of water, and suddenly Dromai's just come up with these big old dragons, and she's attacking this wall. And in the defenses have protected the Sandfolk for centuries, they still hold strong. So it's a big sand wall. But they've never faced Dromai before. This is new. Dromai is here for the first time, presumably, attacking this big old wall. Well, she's not necessarily been here for the first time, actually. That's quite incorrect, because there's a suggestion that Dromai's mother was part of these people. I believe the Sandakai and the Sandfolk are related, and I think it will say that somewhere else, but it's a speculation, I guess. Vincerakai just smashes through the sandstone. So Vincerakai is this big red dragon, just goes bam, goes straight through like a boulder. Necria melts it down with noxious gas, like a poisonous gas. It's pretty cool. And then Asvalai, this very nimble dragon. I believe wasn't Asvalai the one that was connected to the Sandakai? Yeah, so to guard the crossroads of the Sandakai. So kind of nimble, lightning-y kind of dragon. So yeah, so that he just sort of darts through the holes and sort of attacks the enemy illusionists. Red paints the white sands as the first illusionist loses his head to Asvalai's snapping jaws. So these illusions, where they do some real damage. You know, like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, like just because something is an illusionary magic doesn't mean it can't. Certain illusions, like simulacrum, can do some damage. You know, another rushes forward to repair the wall, only to be bisected by the crystal dragon shot tail. So pretty metal. These dragons are messing these guys up. The wall itself. So this is weird. It gets really meta. The wall is also a figment of the Sandfolk's imagination. It's made manifest in the minds of the men who stand before it. Dromai's dragons fly the same thin line between dream and reality. When an illusion is powerful enough, seeing truly is believing. I love the idea that this wall is an illusion, right? So I love the idea of like Rhinar like just running up to this wall and just being like, ah, and the wall just gets broken by Phantasm and dies immediately because Rhinar's like throwing like a 6-power attack at it. That's just my maybe it's a Spectra. Maybe it's not a Phantasm. Maybe it's a Spectra instead. And everyone's happy. Dromai is this line: semblance becomes stone, fancy becomes flesh. Interesting line, that one. But yeah, here we go. We got Zatharai. I believe that's how you would pronounce the X there, is Zatharai. Says, we should have brought you from the beginning, Dromai. You honor your father's memory. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So, Zatharai, part of the Dracai, he says that Dromai honors her father. So he still clearly holds her father in, like, in good esteem and considers Dromai's father to be a good man, even though it's strongly suggested that her father sort of left the Dracai to be part of the Volcai and to marry a common woman. And then, and Dromai says, like, Tobai was betrayed by love, and that she has no such weakness. Dromai will never love you. Okay, as the wall crumbles, the remaining illusionists drive out to fly back with tornadoes of sand. Dromai dances with dragons. Game of Thrones, anyone? Between the dust devils with the graceful motion. Nokia douses, it's battles happening, guys. Battles are happening. People are dying in violent ways because this is a modern fantasy story. So everyone has to die in horrible, realistic ways, like flesh running in rivulets from their bones. No one dies normally anymore in fantasy. You have to die like really horribly. No sentiment for your mother's own people. Okay, here we go. Right. So yeah. So this Dromai's mother. Let me just get that back up. Dromai's mother was Sani of the Sandfolk. I guess it still doesn't connect. And all I wanted something to say that the Sandakai are the Sandfolk, but maybe they're not. Maybe so this is just the Sandfolk. But I'm sure that's somewhere. Someone can comment below and say if that's the case. No sentiment for your mother's own people, says the Dracai Spymaster. So that's Zatharai. It's the Spymaster. And then Dromai says, the woman who left me with traitors? Never. So, yeah. I'm not sure about that line. So, no sentiment for your mother. The woman who left me with traitors. But I thought her mother was killed. Does that mean that she left... Dromai's mother left her with Min, the murderer? That's an interesting one. I hadn't really flagged that before. So no sentiment for your mother's own people. The woman who left me with traitors. But I thought that her mother died. Like, I don't know if that counts as leaving her. Maybe we'll get to that in a second. And then blah, 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 blah. As if her thoughts summons Sani of the Sandfolk. So Dromai's mother appears. She comes into existence before Dromai's startled eyes. She was a babe in arms when her mother was murdered. Yeah, so is Dromai suggesting that by being murdered, she was leaving her with traitors? I don't, Dromai, I'm not sure you can make that call. I'm not sure that's cool. I don't think it was Sani's fault that she was murdered. Dromai recognizes the sandalwood scent, soft and comforting, which is nice. Nice little line. So Dromai, she's an illusionist, right? And you might be thinking, well, she should know that this isn't really her mother, right? She literally appears in front of Dromai's eyes. But Dromai clearly has some issues, and this was clearly the right thing to throw in front of her, because it really startles her. Zatharai says there's something wrong, and Dromai's like, can't you see her? And then this is enough to essentially almost break Dromai's concentration, and they manage to take out some of her dragons. So Vincerakai has torn them from Limbo Volcano, and then Dromai's mother, Sani, which was an illusionist, a mirage, disappears. She tries to rein in her remaining dragons, but too late. Asphalt is broken, and Necria gets killed. She's defeated. This illusion was a great move. It distracts Dromai. Dromai's still pretty young. We say that apparently this is one of her first missions. Might not be her first one, but she's still pretty young. And yeah, I spoke to you soon, says Zatharai. You are the pathetic half-blood. They say you are. Jesus Christ, Zatharai. Like, he goes from like, oh my god, you're the best, to being like, you're pathetic. Like, it's pretty harsh, but I guess that's the Dracai for you. So I suppose you've seen Dromai's really angry. Her mind's reeling from the sight of her mother and the loss of her dragons, and she lifts her chin, though, trying to remain dignified. She says, I'll try again, and Zatharai says, you're dead in defeat. They go back and forth, and then Zatharai's like, no, it was surprise that broke the siege, if only for a moment. Notice that that really takes a lot away from Dromai. Dromai, like, they said they've been trying to siege the city for months, right? And Dromai does it, like, breaks through in like less than 10 minutes or whatever. Like, she just does it immediately. But then Zatharai sort of takes a lot of that away from Dromai by saying it was surprise. So it was nothing to do with Dromai. It was just surprise that did this. And if only for a moment, and it won't work a second time, and basically they're going to give up. And I was like, that's kind of harsh to Dromai. Like, it was her power that gave them their first like chance. And although she like stumbled, it shows like Zatharai's relationship with Dromai is really interesting. He sort of sees her as like super powerful, but then there's this doubt as well that like perhaps that she's not focused, or her fact that her mother was not a Dracai is an issue. But anyway, so the army withdraws, and she says, to sear this failure into her memory of a white-hot brand, if she is to become a Dracai, she must never turn from shame. She must never forget. I'm not sure what she must never... she shouldn't forget this failure, right? Yeah, she needs to learn from her mistakes, which is a good attitude. From Dromai. Then they go back to Ashvahan. The restless days crawl by. Dromai bides her time. Reading these 12 Dragons books, very similar to Prism, as we mentioned before. The dragons being in these tomes, the heralds being in a tome. She practices to become stronger. And she tries to make herself so exhausted that she doesn't dream. And every day she petitions Zatharai for another mission, another chance to prove herself. And the 13th day, like, there's not a huge amount of time. It makes it sound like there might be quite a lot of time between these two. It's only 13 days, so like 2 weeks tops. Zatharai visits her chambers, which are pretty basic, and apparently there's been an insurrection. And the rebels have captured General Riku. And apparently Dromai's not heard that name in years. Not since Zatharai came to her village. Not since Riku's soldiers drove her murderous foster mother into the forest. So Riku was behind the attack on the village, which is kind of cool. And now Dromai is going to save this general. And I notice here again, she refers to her foster mother as murderous. This is Min the Murderer, as she calls her, which is incidentally a fantastic name, but is not true. We will find, and some spoilers, everyone, but it turns out that Min the Murderer was not presumably a murderer, and that is also Fi's mother. Not since Min's lies were burned away by the Dracai's truth about her real parents. So Min might have not told Dromai about her real parents, though. So maybe did lie to her, but was maybe trying to protect her. We don't really know. And then, so at this point, Dromai is not technically a Dracai. Because if she can succeed in this next mission, they will declare her a Dracai, and the stain of her Volcai blood washed clean. Dromai hides her excitement behind a mask of determination. When do we leave? Quick cut. So, as you can tell, I've changed
when I was editing this video for the sort of 10 minutes of the video, I had duplicate audio coming out of my OBS. Only 10 minutes of an hour-long video with duplicate audio. So just gonna jump straight back in and re-record like 10 minutes of story. So if things look slightly different, that's why. But yeah, we're just gonna continue where we've left off. For me, it's been 2 days, but for you guys, it's been no time at all. So let's go back to we just found out Dromai, you know, we when they leave, they're gonna go rescue General Riku. I was looking at this again. I was like, Riku? I'm gonna say Riku. So they ride out with hussars. Presumably this is Dromai and Zatharai. Zatharai. I'm sure I said it right the first time. Who knows? Going out with some hussars at their back. Dusk of the second day, they reach the mangled outer fields of the Golden Orchard estate. The air is thick with the meaty sweetness of funeral pyres. If you ever smelled a funeral pyre before, you'll know full well that it smells like meaty sweetness. I've never actually smelled one myself. So peasants are essentially looting dead Imperial soldiers. I believe last time when my previous recording, I made a joke about plunder run here because they're heaping their plunder on the carts. Unfortunately, I'm clearly not as funny as I was 2 days ago. So Zatharai says find Riku. Again, a bit weird because Zatharai has fire sight, so you'd think that he'd be the one that could spot them. But he gets Dromai to do it anyway, gets them search. So they ride for the hill, campfires, summit bonfire burns bright, and the cavalry is behind her, and they're crushing scavengers who fail to sort of run away. And thousands of hoofbeats echo the thousands of dream beats that heralded the Emperor's rare appearance that day 10 years ago. Yeah, that's an interesting line. So the Emperor's rare appearance that day 10 years ago on her first visit to the throne room. So on her first visit to the throne room, that she saw the Emperor. I'm not sure what a dream beat is. Thousands of hoofbeats echo the thousands of dream beats. I've never heard of that term before. So if anyone knows what dream beats are, let me know. But yeah, all of Dromai's fire and courage, her calm and poise, fled her when she saw the Emperor. Never had she witnessed such power, a power to bow to, a power to aspire to. So she wants to be the Emperor, basically. She wants that power. So Dromai is riding through this sort of scene of dead Imperial soldiers searching for General Riku. She summons Tumultai, like one of the big dragons. So Tumultai is the one that's meant to power the Imperial furnace. So clearly the furnace is sort of taking an afternoon off. While Dromai summons Tumultai. I know it doesn't work that way, but so Tumultai lifts off from the skeleton of a burned out barn. Would have been cool if they'd chosen like a burnt out like blacksmith or something, because Tumultai is related to the furnace, but what the hey? His hide is as hard as petrified lava. Okay, I remember going on a major tangent at this point when I previously recorded, being like, what's the difference between lava and magma? And should this line actually be his hide is as hard as petrified magma and his bared teeth drip with fresh lava? Because I believe when lava is moving, when it's moving, it's lava. So if it's dripping off Tumultai's teeth, maybe it should be lava. Or is it lava when it's above ground and it's magma when it's below ground? So if it's like the hide underneath it's magma and the teeth are dripping with above ground lava, it doesn't really matter that much. I remember going on about it for a really long time. So I'm going to save a little bit of time and just be like, that's fine. Well written. The rebels try to muster. So the rebels are just hanging out. They raise their stolen halberds and spears. Try to make a barricade against the approaching cavalry. Very nice. Form ranks. Tumultai just sort of sweeps them away, though. Sweeps aside the rebels, and Dromai rides over to their broken bodies, urges her steed uphill. Would have liked to have known the name of Dromai's horse. That would have been cool. I'm really interested if Dromai can like ride the dragons, like ride Tumultai. That'd be pretty cool. But rebels spill from their tents. Tumultai greets them with dragonfire. They get wasted. Behind her, Zathari directs his hussars through the confusion. His fire sight allows him to read the flames like a map. So this is kind of where I was like, surely Zathari can spot where General Riku is. Maybe he can't. Maybe that's he's looked through all the flames and he can't spot Riku, so that's why he's getting Dromai to find Riku for him, because they've kept Riku away from fires. Because I believe that Fi and the silver-haired ninja, the name of which escapes me, know about Zathari's powers. So yeah, the fire. So just incidentally, his fire sight seems ridiculously overpowered. He can just see through flames. It allows him to read the flames like a map. That's pretty cool. But yeah, just in case I hadn't already mentioned that seems very strong as an ability. The fires told him, just as they told him all those years ago, where to find Dromai. So he does know where to find people. I knew where Dromai was, the orphan. So at the crown of the hill, Dromai dismounts. So goodbye, Dromai horse, whoever or whomever you are, and takes cover behind a tree. So fair enough. Ahead of her, a silver-haired woman stands over a finely dressed corpse. Next to the dead woman, bound and gagged, lies her prize, General Riku. Bloodied and cowed. Actually, I think we find out who that woman is in Fi's story, so we'll refer back to this when we cover Fi. The silver-haired ninja barks orders to the fighters who are holding the high ground against Zathari's cavalry. One such fighter, a young man in a ragged red cloak, I wonder whom he might be, knocks a rider from her saddle with a magnificent flying kick, which is incredibly badass. He just flying kicks a fool off her horse. Dromai can't make out his face through the smoke and the dust, but she can tell by his predatory grace that he's a man to be wary of, though not for long, apparently. She brings Tumultai soaring into view. Riku is too close. So there's too many people around. Riku is here, so she can't just burn the fools. So instead, she knocks Silverhair off her feet, of the silver-haired ninja off her feet with the dragon's tail, and then charges Tumultai into the fray to just attack and rend and tear. Silverhair gets up, which is cool. Gets slapped by a dragon, just gets back up on her feet, and she rallies the survivors, but Dromai is just destroying these guys with Tumultai. But the ragged-haired cloaked man gets in the way between Tumultai and the silver-haired ninja. And riding a stolen cavalry horse, I would love to think that it's Dromai's horse, and this horse is going to make it. I'm so obsessed with this horse. He scoops the woman up, the silver-haired ninja, and for a moment, Dromai sees his face, and yes, it's Fi, everyone, in case you hadn't guessed that. 10 years have turned his boyish features into those of a battle-hardened man. It's Fi of the Forest of Flames, son of Min the Murderer, which is a pretty cool, both of those pretty cool titles. Her false sibling gallops down the hillside with a silver-haired rebel slung over the neck of his horse. Interesting that Fi chooses to save the silver-haired rebel rather than take General Riku. So General Riku at this moment is still bound and gagged, and presumably Fi. I mean, if you look at this picture, it looks like General Riku's tied to a tree. It doesn't actually say that in the text, so maybe that's why Fi didn't take General Riku, but he saves the silver-haired ninja, doesn't attempt to recapture the general. He chooses to save his ally rather than continuing the advantage they have by holding Riku captive. So he escapes, but Dromai's not really here for him. Yeah, Dromai lets him go. She's not interested. She's here to fulfill her mission. She's probably got in her mind her failure 2 weeks ago at this point to not succeed in her mission to capture the Sandfolk, to siege the Sandfolk wall. And she's here to achieve her mission, become a Dracai, and she doesn't really care about Fi right now. She lands Tumultai next to Riku, protecting her prize. She sees Riku as a prize to be won, which I think is pretty cool. Frees him from his bonds. He says thank you. Dromai doesn't really care though. She smiles, but it's for her sake. She knows that this is what's going to please the Emperor, and it's the Emperor's thanks that she wants, not this failed general. She looks up at Zathari as he rides over the crest of the hill, his sharp eyes taking the scene. His smile mirrors hers. Now the Emperor will see what I see in you, says Zathari, and she bows her head. She accepts this praise from Zathari because it's relating to the Emperor. Zathrai is putting the praise in a way that Dromai will appreciate it in terms of pleasing the Emperor, and obviously Dromai wants to become a Dracai. And yeah, like the village of her past, her village of her childhood, her past has been burned away. No longer is she the little girl raised by rebels, no longer the daughter of shame, no longer Dromai the half-blood. We know that, you know, she can pretend that these things aren't true, but they are still the case. She thinks that she can burn away her past, but as most of us know, it's not that easy to burn away your past. But she feels like she is where she belongs, where her dragon blood has burned to be for 30 years. Really interesting that Dromai is 30 years old. Not something I expected, but fair enough. But she is Dracai. Very cool. Very cool. And I think that's covered the bit that was missing. So hopefully we will switch back to 2 days younger Dan. So thanks for bearing with while I re-recorded that bit. Speaks a lot about Dromai's motivations, and we're going to learn a lot more about Dromai and her background and this Min the murderer. I keep wanting to say Ming the merciless from Flash Gordon, but no, it's Min the murderer. We'll learn a bit more about Min and Fi in the next video I do on Fi, and then we'll do the combo of the stories after that. That was Dragons of Empire. We're going to do Betrayal. So next episode, for those still knocking around, next episode on Finder's Library. It's going to be Fi. I'm going to go through the Fi story, the Fi about page, and then we'll go through this little bit and Fi's Rebellion, and then we'll do the Phoenix and the Dragon and Betrayal together, because I think those two go quite well together. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we might do, in the future, we will also do Icelander. And we might do a quick one on the Emperor at some point as well, because the Emperor is got just a very brief story, but it's kind of interesting. Shouldn't take us too long to go through the Emperor at some point. Look at his hat, guys. So funny. Okay, right. That was a bit of a Finder's Library experiment. Let's leave it on Dromai. And yeah, so thank you for watching. I hope this was like a fun hour romp through Dromai's page and like a few things about Dromai. Like, I just want to make some chilled out content like this because it's the thing I can do on a weekend. I could just sit down and like record it. And it's meant to be super casual. It's like just a chance to like essentially just chat shit about the lore without having to worry about editing so much. So let me know what you think. I know people love the edited content, but when I did some edited stuff that didn't have my voice in, I think I got some feedback from people saying that they really liked my voice, which was great. They liked me talking. So this is just purely unscripted. Like all of that was just me chatting casually, and I think it would work quite well as a stream in the future. So we might do like a mini stream at some point. Get some people to get you, so you guys can like ask questions as we're reading through, and we could discuss things together. But for now, I'm just gonna do these videos. And personally, I really enjoyed that. I had a blast just talking to myself for an hour and just talking through some of my thoughts on Dromai, because I think she's got a cool story, and I think the lore is in a better place than it was during Tales of Aria. You may have seen the channel sort of dropped off a bit during Tales, because I just wasn't really feeling those stories from Tales and Everfest. I think they were interesting characters, but like they didn't really go anywhere. That story didn't really go anywhere in the end, which was a shame. There wasn't really a bad guy in Tales of Aria, right? It was just like 3 heroes, and we never really got the foil to those heroes. So maybe that's something that we'll get in the future, and we'll revisit those characters. Like obviously Icelander ended up being a really interesting character because we brought Icelander into Uprising, but maybe we'll have a little general discussion about the lore at some point and just sort of chat that through, how I feel about it. I think it's got better, but I still think it has a ways to go. I think it could definitely still improve. But it's a new game, and working out the lore is hard. But I'm just going to keep chatting about it, keep making content, and keep enjoying talking about Flesh and Blood lore. So if you like this sort of thing, please subscribe. It's the easiest way to keep track of what I'm doing. But I would also recommend following me on Twitter, which is I'm not sure what my Twitter is. I could just get it up. DJE Trip. Twitter, and I just sort of do like funny memes. And occasionally I will post when I've got something new coming out. So it's a good way to. I love that on my search I've just got lava versus magma. like like that really matters. But yeah, I recommend following my Twitter to keep up to date on new videos, because sometimes you can miss it on on YouTube. Great. Thanks guys. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Goodbye. Have a good weekend, guys. Have a good week. See you later.